What's going on is Anton from AntonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I recently ran across an interesting article specifically from Business Insider where Terrell Owens sat down with the magazine or the publication and specifically talked about how he fumbled $80 million in earnings that he partially earned from the NFL and from sponsorships. Now, if you are not familiar with who Terrell Owens is, he is a former and retired, now Hall of Fame football player that, as of recent reports, they say that he's looking to try to make it back into the NFL. He is in phenomenal shape. I remember him on some reality TV shows, but more importantly, he is known for his antics on the football field and for going broke and fumbling the bag. Right now, I think that I want to go over this article, and I know that you guys sent it to me. So what I try to do is not read the article or look at clips or anything like that that you guys send me so that we can react to it together and I can give you my personal opinion and perspective on whether or not it makes sense and if these are learned lessons that you guys need to take for yourselves so that when you get rich along with me and you join the Patreon, shout out to all of my bag chasers, and you don't fumble the bag yourself. So I think it's important for us to go ahead and dive into the article specifically. So the first thing that it says is don't bust your finances chasing someone else's lifestyle. It says Owens remembers how after being drafted by the 49ers, he and other rookies were smitten with the flashy lifestyles of the veteran players. He says, at the time, I got sucked into wanting to be like everybody else, the guys with the Mercedes and all the flashy cars and the jewelry. I think those are some of the most idiotic purchases I think players can do, especially when they don't have that money in the bank account to really pay for that stuff. Now, the thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, and I think that this is a really good lesson, but I think it's some additional context that needs to be added into this, is he's speaking about this lifestyle that NFL players are leading. And I think that this can largely apply also to what we see happening in real life. It's a lot of people that plays keeping up with the Joneses. Now, me personally, I've always preached and I advocate for stand down for at least 10 years, especially as men and young men, because you don't have any other thing to do anyway, especially as 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, because you're supposed to be poor when you're in college. You're supposed to be on a come up. You're supposed to be deep diving. You're supposed to be making investments. And I think that this advice specifically is 100% spot on as far as don't bust your finances chasing someone else's lifestyle. Now, the one thing that we have to add as a caveat is down here where it says they don't have that money in the bank account to really pay for that stuff. I think the one misconception that a lot of people have that they're wrong about is that you need money in the bank, or just because you can afford it or you're financing it, that is supplemented by the idea that you can have the money in bank and you can pay for it. That still doesn't change anything. You're just not paying for the servicer of the loan. You know, you're not raising your lifestyle to meet the payments that you can make. But just because you got it in the bank still don't mean that you're supposed to be spending it on stuff just because you got the cash to pay for it. What you should be doing specifically is making sure that you're making the long-term investments so that those investments then pay for your lifestyle once you've accumulated enough investments and your net worth meet a certain threshold. So I think that that's a really good tip from Terrell Owens. The second thing is it's your money, take ownership. I agree with the second one, and I think I know what the sentiment is going to be, but it says athletes coming into money hear it all the time from financial advisors. We're going to take care of you. We're going to have your best interests at heart. I'm going to deep dive into that in a second. It says I took it for face value and I got burned. I can't blame them totally because I had some responsibility in that myself, because I should have been able to really manage my finances just as well as they are doing. The interesting thing about this, though, is funny because you do know that a lot of these players on average go broke within 5 years of exiting out of the league. One of the most notorious cases, he's not even an NFL player, right? He is Antoine Walker, and he lost over $100 million having hanger-ons and being able to live this lifestyle, and they don't plan for the long term. And the interesting thing about us that we have a leg up on as regular everyday people that are professionals is that we have a runway that's significantly longer than them, even though they make a lot more money earlier in their careers, right? Meaning that after their days are done and they don't know, they plan for that next big contract and things like that, they really don't have any clue as to what it is that they're going to do afterwards, which is the majority of their life. Because let's just say, for example, they retire before 30, which a lot of them do. Everybody don't turn out to be Tom Brady's. Let's say, for example, they retire or they get out of the league or they get injured or whatever before 30. They still have probably 40 to 50 more years of trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. And there's no way like, if you don't have the business acumen to understand exactly how money works, which is one of the things that he's saying in this article, right? He says, is your money take ownership, and they talking about financial advisors and things like that. If you don't have the business acumen, and I tell people like this all the time, you can open up a business, but that does not mean that you have a business mindset. You are going to get burned, because if somebody else speaks that language much better than you and they look at you as an imbecile, but you're just a body that's generating revenue for them, you are going to get burned. Even with taxes, right? And I say this all the time. You can hire a tax professional, but it does not absolve you from the responsibility of being able to make sure that your taxes is paid for and accounted for properly, which means that even though they are doing it and they are the professionals, you still should be able to keep an eye on your stuff, and you should still know it almost as well as they do. They're just the person that's serving in the role to make sure that the taxes is taken care of appropriately, because like Steve Harvey's story said, you can fumble the bag and that can be the end of everything, or you're still going to be responsible for it long after they're gone. All right. So number 3, if you don't understand, ask questions and use your resources until you do. He says in the NFL, there are veteran players and financial programs that can help with financial questions. It's just a matter of taking initiative. It's really tricky situation when you're an athlete. You want to kind of keep a lot of things close to the vest, and I think the best thing to do is ask questions before it's too late. Asking questions is especially important for deals that land in your lap. It's well known that if you make it big in the NFL, folks start coming out of the woodwork with this or that business idea or investment opportunity. Stay away from it immediately. That's my personal advice. Not all players have people clamoring for their money, but the advice is the same no matter who you are. Know full well what you're getting yourself into. Find somebody that that is experienced in that area to give you advice. Don't ask them, what do you think about this? Don't take anything for granted. All 3 of these points so far is hitting the nail on the head. I think that he's 100% accurate, and that there is an importance in making sure that you align yourself with people that have your best interests at heart, right? It says, if you don't understand, ask questions and use your resources until you do. There are no bad questions. There is no dumb questions when it comes to your money, right? You should make sure that you are asking the questions that is going to be in your best interest long term. Because guess who's going to be stuck holding that bag at the end of the day? You. You are going to be the one that's stuck holding that bag. You got to make sure that you take care of your business. So I'm agreeing with all 3 points so far. Number 4, he says, be smart about impulse purchases. Facts. When the money is tight, you get used to thinking hard before making any purchase. You know what I see people do before I even deep dive into this, right? When people come into money, they start going crazy with it, right? And what I see people do, even on a smaller scale, and then you can just blow this out depending on whatever it is your income is, as they continue to ascend up the corporate ladder, up the business ladder, or whatever it is that they're getting into, they adjust their lifestyle to their income and they make impulse purchases because they can afford the payment. That's never the way that you're supposed to assess making a purchase, right? Even when it comes to making big purchases. Me personally, I buy things that appreciate over time, or things that's closely associated with helping me with my business that I can use also as a tax write-off, because it is legal for me to do that, because it is associated with what it is that I'm trying to do as far as either promoting the business, building the business, or reinvesting in the business, right? It says when money is tight, you get used to thinking hard before you making any purchase, necessary or discretionary. But when you have a financial windfall, just like hitting the lottery, which is why most people that win in the lottery wind up going broke, whether you're signing an NFL contract or just getting a raise, it becomes a lot easier to spend money on a whim. Well, it's like more money, more problems, so to speak. Sometimes at that moment, you think a purchase is very well calculated, but in the long run, you're like, I don't think I should have bought that. Again, you want to make sure that you stay down for an extended period of time. So A, you get used to the money, and then B, you can let what it is that you invest in or the money that you're generating outside of whatever your profession is, then can justify whatever the purchases is that you're making long term. So I'm agreeing with all four so far. Number 5, but sometimes spending money is worth it. Owens is well known for his flamboyant touchdown celebrations, including borrowing pom-poms for a little impromptu cheerleading and stunting on the Dallas Cowboys star midfield. That's one of the things that he's most famous for. Let me see. Nerd Wallet calculated that Owens was fined around $150,000 during his career for excessive celebrations. Was it worth it? He says, oh yeah, it was worth it. That's the least of my worries. Nah, fam. That's the one thing that I do disagree with it. We over here in the Bag Chasers University, we fumble, no bags. But shout out to Terrell Owens, and I love the fact that people are being transparent with what it is that they did with their money, whether they're successful or they fumbled the bag, in order to give us some insight on how it is that we can do things differently and make sure that we continue to level up. I love you. I appreciate you. Make sure you guys join the Patreon. The link is in the description. We're doing some phenomenal things in there, including building businesses from scratch where I'm putting up my own money and giving people equity just to help me, because I believe that the way that you learn needs to be more immersive instead of just looking at a bunch of videos or working through a few modules that don't necessarily carry with you after you get off of that, right? So we actually immerse in the people. We going in a community of people. We rocking with a community of people that's going in the direction that you want to go in. Also, in addition to that, we got the Patreon meetup in Las Vegas, May 14th, as of the recording of this video. Make sure you rock with us. If you need a personal coaching session or you need to reach out to me, make sure you get at me, AntonDaniels.com. That's my website. Send me an email from there. Click the email link, or you can just email me at AntonDaniels413@gmail.com, and we're going to get you scheduled. I love you. I appreciate you. I need you to do me one more thing before we get out of here, though. Make sure you tell your family and friends, because we don't want to be rich by ourselves. Share this video, hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and then make sure that we don't fumble any bags. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.